The sea has always carried secrets, whispered in waves and hidden in silence beneath the tides. Legends speak of a throne, not of gold or iron, but of coral and pearl, resting deep below the horizon. It was said to belong to Poseidon, lord of tides, master of storms, keeper of calm harbors and endless seas. His throne was not built for power, but for balance, binding shore to wave and mortals to the ocean's heart. Sailors once swore they felt its presence, guiding their ships through storms and into harbors of safety. But long ago, in a night of thunder, lightning, and shifting winds, the throne slipped into the depths. Some believed it was lost forever, swallowed by the abyss and guarded by silence and shadow. Others whispered Poseidon himself allowed it to fall, to test the respect of those who sail his waters. The throne became legend, a story told by firelight, a song carried on the salt wind across the sea. Generations passed, but the ocean remembers, and sometimes it calls to those who listen with open hearts. This is the story of that call, of a journey guided by dreams, and of a throne that still breathes beneath. The sea speaks first in whispers, carried on waves that touch the hulls of forgotten ships. Sailors listen when the night is calm, for in silence the ocean tells stories older than kingdoms. Among the oldest is the tale of a throne, sunken deep, known only as the drowned throne of Poseidon. It is not carved from marble or forged in iron, but woven of coral, pearl, and the light of the sea. They say it glows with a breath that does not fade, pulsing like a heart beneath endless blue shadows. Some describe its shape as towering, others as delicate, but all agree it holds a strange living presence. To those at sea, it is less a throne of power than a reminder of the balance between mortal and tide. For the ocean is vast, yet it listens, and the throne is its voice, guiding or warning as the waves allow. Old captains swear they felt its unseen hand, steering them clear of reefs when hope was nearly gone. Others recall sudden calm in storms, as if a hidden eye watched from below, holding back the fury. But legends twist with time, and what begins as truth becomes wrapped in wonder, mystery, and fear. Some whisper the throne is a gift, a bond between Poseidon and mortals who honor the sea with respect. Others claim it is a test, that those who seek it will face their own heart more than any ocean wave. The throne, they say, does not appear to greedy eyes, nor to hands that reach for crowns or control. It reveals itself only in silence, only when the heart is still enough to hear the language of water. Yet few believe such things in daylight, when sails fill with wind and laughter drowns the ocean's song. It is at night, beneath starlight, that the sea begins to murmur, and sailors lean close to listen. The whispers speak of a throne lost in time, resting where no map leads and no anchor dares to sink. Some claim to have seen its glow in dreams, coral branches bending like arms beneath dark waters. Others swear they woke from sleep to find the sea calm as glass, their ship drifting over unseen ruins. Every telling grows with new details. A pearl the size of a lantern, a crown of shells, a chamber of light. Yet behind every story lies the same truth. No mortal has claimed the throne, nor carried it to shore. It remains beneath, untouched, perhaps waiting, or perhaps guarding the silence it was born to keep. Why Poseidon let it sink, none can say, though many have guessed with voices trembling by the fire. Some believe he grew weary of mortals hungering for power, and so he let the sea reclaim the throne. Others imagine he wished to test those who travel the waves to see if they seek balance or dominion. And there are those who say he never lost it at all, that the throne is not gone, but only hidden. For in the ocean's heart, nothing is lost, only changed, only shifted deeper than mortal eyes can see. What is certain is this: the sea remembers, and the throne remembers too, holding stories like shells. When waves crash against the cliffs, some swear they hear not thunder, but the throne's echoing call. And so sailors keep listening, not with charts or compasses, but with hearts open to the ocean's song. The throne may be drowned, but its legend floats forever, carried by currents, carried by every tide. Perhaps it waits for one listener who does not seek to rule, but to understand what lies beneath. For the throne of Poseidon is not meant to be found in conquest, but to be felt in silence and trust. This is why the whispers begin, soft and eternal, whenever the sea touches those who dare to dream. The sea is old, yet the god who ruled it was older still, a presence born when the first tide touched the shore. Poseidon was known by many names: Lord of the depths, Master of storms, Keeper of calm, Father of horses. To mortals, he was both feared and revered, for the ocean can bless a voyage or claim it without warning. Yet Poseidon himself was not simply a figure of rage and thunder, as tales often painted him to be. He was a guardian of rhythm, a weaver of tides, ensuring the sea moved as blood flows through a body. His trident, gleaming with light, was not a weapon of conquest, but a tool to guide currents and waves. When storms rose, it was not out of cruelty, but as a reminder that balance cannot be taken for granted. When calm waters stretched to the horizon, it was his gift, a lullaby of safety for those who trusted him. The throne he sat upon was no ordinary seat, for it held the memory of every tide since the world began. Carved of living coral and glowing shell, it pulsed softly, as though the ocean itself breathed within it. From this throne, Poseidon watched over sailors, fishermen, wanderers, and all who placed faith in the sea. He listened to their prayers, the whispered promises cast upon waves, the songs sung into the salt air. When a ship left harbor, Poseidon felt it, as if a thread of the sea itself stretched to cradle its journey. When nets sank into the water, he sensed the balance, what the ocean could give and what must be spared. Though mighty in power, he was not distant, for the ocean touches every shore and every heart that sails. He was guardian of beauty, the silver dance of fish, the call of whales, the shimmer of light in the deep. And he was guardian of silence too, the still moments when water held its breath beneath moonlit skies. Mortals, however, often remembered only his storms, forgetting the calm that stretched between the gales. For when anger came, it was swift, a surge of water and sky reminding all that the sea was not theirs. But those who listened closely understood. Poseidon's power was not born of rage, but of protection. He was the keeper of balance, ensuring no hand reached too far, no greed took too much from the sea. The throne itself embodied that vow, a seat not of command, but of harmony between land and water. It glowed with a light that shifted like waves, gentle yet unbreakable, like the promise of the tide. To sit upon it was not to rule, but to hear the ocean's voice, the chorus of every current and shore. Only Poseidon himself could bear its weight, for it was woven from the essence of the sea itself. And yet, the throne was never meant to stay in one place, for the ocean is always moving, always alive. It was said the throne drifted with the currents, appearing where Poseidon chose, vanishing like a dream. Sometimes it rested in coral palaces, surrounded by dolphins and gardens of anemones swaying in light. Sometimes it lay in caverns of shadow, guarded by silence, where only the bravest dared to swim. But wherever it rested, the throne carried with it the pulse of the sea, eternal, steady, unbroken. Mortals dreamed of finding it, believing they might gain power, glory, or mastery over storms. Yet those who sought it with hunger never returned, for the throne reveals itself only to pure intent. It listens not to ambition, but to humility, to those who see the sea not as treasure, but as kin. Poseidon knew this truth, and so he let stories spread, for legends teach where warnings may fail. By firelight, sailors told of the throne, half in awe, half in fear, each word carrying a seed of respect. Children grew hearing his name, not as a tyrant, but as a keeper who held the tides in sacred balance. And though he was a god, Poseidon was never far, for each crashing wave echoed his voice. Each rising tide was his step, each ebb his retreat, and each storm his reminder of fragile harmony. The sea, vast and endless, was his domain, and the throne beneath it was his vow eternal. Thus, when mortals spoke of Poseidon, they spoke not only of fury, but of guardianship, of balance kept. And though they feared him, they also knew, without his hand, the sea would lose its rhythm and soul. This is why the throne mattered, why its memory endured, why even in silence, the ocean tells his tale. Long ago, when the skies darkened and the seas roared, a storm unlike any other swept across the world. It came without warning, not from anger nor curse, but from the restless breath of the earth itself. The heavens cracked with light, the wind howled with voices as if 1,000 spirits cried in unison. Waves rose higher than masts, towering walls of water that bent ships like reeds in a rushing flood. Even the bravest captains whispered prayers, for the sea showed no mercy to those who clung to pride. In the heart of this storm stood the throne of Poseidon, resting in its chamber of coral and pearl. For centuries it had endured every tide, every tremor, a beacon of balance glowing in Ocean Hall. But on that night, the sea shifted, as though the earth beneath had chosen to change its eternal song. Currents clashed, caverns opened, and the throne trembled as if the ocean itself released a deep sigh. It slipped from its resting place, drawn downward, deeper and deeper into the abyss beyond mortal reach. The glow faded from the surface, and all that remained was darkness where once light had shimmered. Some say Poseidon guided it there, his hand steady, his will deciding it was time for silence. Others claim he watched in sorrow, powerless before the storm that reshaped even his watery realm. The truth was lost in waves, for gods too keep their secrets, and the ocean keeps them better still. When the storm broke, the seas calmed as if nothing had ever stirred them, silence soft and haunting. Fishermen awoke to wreckage along the coast, fragments of wood scattered like bones on the sand. But they also found the sea strangely gentle, as though exhausted, as though mourning what was gone. Rumors spread quickly among villages, carried in hushed voices over firelight and shared bread. The throne has drowned, they said, and with it the promise of balance between sea and shore. Yet the ocean continued. Tides rose and fell. Storms returned and retreated. Life carried on. Still, those who listened closely felt a difference, as if a note had vanished from the ocean's song. The waves seemed heavier, the silence deeper, as though the sea was waiting for something unseen. Generations turned the storm into legend, telling children of the night Poseidon lost his throne. Some painted him as wrathful, casting it away to remind mortals that the sea was not theirs. Others spoke of sorrow, a god who wept as his symbol of harmony slipped into the endless abyss. There were even those who believed the throne was never lost, but hidden, waiting for worthy eyes. As the years stretched into centuries, the throne became less memory, more myth, more mystery. Poets sang of its glow in the deep. Dreamers claimed to see it in visions, shimmering in sleep. Sailors told tales of strange, calm seas where wrecks should lie, as if the throne still reached outward. And always, the question lingered. Was the throne taken? Or did Poseidon give it willingly to the deep? No scroll, no carving, no oracle gave an answer. For the sea holds truths in silence, not in stone. Yet those who truly loved the ocean knew this. The throne was never about possession or power. It was about balance, about the promise that sea and land were woven together by unseen hands. If it was gone, then the lesson remained, carried in waves, waiting for hearts still open to learn. So the drowned throne passed into story, but the ocean did not forget, for water remembers all. And when tides rise high against the cliffs, some swear they hear its echo, pulsing deep below. A heartbeat of coral and pearl, waiting in darkness, reminding all who listen that nothing is lost. For the sea is eternal, and what it claims is never gone, only changed, only hidden beneath the blue. The ocean does not forget, and sometimes it speaks not through waves, but through dreams carried on the tide. One such dream came to a wanderer, a soul who had spent life listening more than speaking, watching more than doing. This wanderer, nameless in story, was not a sailor nor scholar, but a dreamer who felt the sea in silence. On nights when the air was still, they would hear the rhythm of waves and sense words hidden in the sound. At first it was only music, the endless breathing of water against the shore, calming yet strange, almost alive. But then the dreams began, vivid as sunrise, filled with visions no mortal could claim to invent alone. They dreamed of towers of coral rising like cathedrals, glowing with light from within their living stone. They dreamed of halls beneath the water, where fish moved like lanterns and dolphins swam in silent circles. And always, at the center of the dream, stood a throne, radiant, carved from pearl and living coral. It glowed not harshly, but softly, pulsing like the steady beat of a heart deep in the earth's chest. The wanderer would wake with a taste of salt on their lips, as though the sea had spoken directly. At first they dismissed it, telling themselves it was the mind's trick, born of listening too long to waves. But the dream returned, again and again, each night clearer, as if the sea was calling louder each time. Whispers echoed within it, not in words of men, but in a language older, felt in bone rather than ear. The wanderer began to sense meanings in the silence, lessons carried in the rhythm of unseen tides. It was not a call to rule, not a call to conquer, but an invitation to seek, to witness, to understand. In daylight, the wanderer walked the shore, watching ships sail outward and return with fish and stories. They wondered if sailors too had felt it, the hum of the ocean beneath the surface, the throne's heartbeat. But when asked, the sailors only laughed, saying the sea speaks in storms, not in dreams of glowing coral. Still, the wanderer felt the call grow stronger, as though the ocean had chosen them alone to listen. One evening, standing by the water, they felt the tide touch their feet as if it carried a gentle hand. The waves seemed to rise in rhythm, not random, but beating with the same pulse as the dream's throne. It was then the wanderer knew the dream was not fantasy, but memory, given by the sea itself to guide. The ocean wanted to be found, or perhaps it wanted to be remembered, through one who could carry the tale. And so the wanderer made a choice, not of ambition, but of trust, to follow where the call might lead. They gathered no maps, for none could guide to what was hidden, and no compass pointed to the drowned throne. Instead, they carried faith, listening to waves by day and by night, tracing the whispers between the tides. The dream became their compass. The pulse of the throne became their star, guiding them through each step. Even in sleep, the sea spoke, showing glimpses of dolphins, glowing reefs, and paths of starlight on water. The wanderer no longer questioned if it was madness, for the call was too clear, too steady to deny. And though they did not know what awaited, they felt no fear, only a strange peace, as if already home. For the ocean does not choose lightly, and when it whispers, it does so with purpose older than the world. The wanderer was chosen not to possess, but to witness, to walk the path toward the drowned throne. And in every step, in every dream, the ocean carried them closer, like a tide carrying a shell to shore. Thus begins their journey, not of conquest, but of listening, as the sea opens its story to a mortal heart. The journey began not with sails or ships, but with footsteps upon sand, steady and unhurried like the tide. The wanderer walked where the land met the water, listening for whispers hidden in the crash of each wave. Birds circled overhead, their cries sharp and fleeting. Yet the ocean's hum was deeper, endless, eternal. Every sunrise painted the horizon with gold, and every sunset cloaked it in violet, guiding the wanderer onward. They followed no map, for none could chart a path to the drowned throne buried in the ocean's memory. Instead, the rhythm of the sea became compass, its ebb and flow drawing invisible lines across the world. Villagers along the coast watched curiously, asking where the wanderer traveled and why they walked alone. The wanderer only smiled, speaking little, for words felt smaller than the vastness of the call they followed. Some gave bread, some gave water, believing the wanderer blessed, chosen by something greater than men. Others shook their heads, saying dreams were not worth pursuit, that the sea devours those who listen too closely. Still, the wanderer walked, carrying kindness as provisions and faith as armor against doubt and fear. Nights were spent beneath stars, the constellations mirrored in the black mirror of the water's surface. Sometimes the dream returned, showing glimpses of coral towers, glowing faintly like beacons beneath the waves. Other times silence came, and even then the wanderer trusted, for silence too was part of the sea's song. On the seventh night, while resting by a cliff, the wanderer heard a voice softer than wind upon reeds. It was not human, not spoken, but it pressed gently into thought like a tide pressing against the shore. "Come," it seemed to say, a whisper without language, a soundless urging from deep below the waves. The wanderer rose, gazing at the dark ocean, and knew the path no longer lay on land, but in water. The morning after, they sought fishermen to carry them outward, far beyond the safe line of the coast. Most refused, fearing deep waters where storms were born, and where legends said God still wandered unseen. At last, an old sailor agreed, not for coin, but for the pull of curiosity older than his bones. His boat was weathered, patched with tar and hope, yet strong enough to meet the swell of the open sea. They sailed beneath skies, both clear and clouded, as gulls followed until the shore faded into mist. The ocean deepened in color, shifting from green to endless blue, as if swallowing secrets in its heart. The wanderer stood at the bow, eyes closed, listening, feeling the faint pulse of the drowned throne below. It was weaker here, softer, but still there like a heartbeat under layers of silence and salt. The old sailor watched them curiously, muttering of omens, yet guiding the boat steadily with practiced hands. Days passed, the sea both gentle and harsh, gifting calm mornings and restless nights of rolling waves. The wanderer dreamed again, this time of dolphins guiding them, their movements graceful, their eyes knowing. When morning came, real dolphins appeared, leaping alongside the boat, vanishing then returning like companions. The old sailor crossed himself, whispering that such signs meant the gods still watched with curious eyes. But the wanderer only smiled, for they felt the call grow stronger, as if each mile deepened the bond. One evening, the horizon burned red, and the wanderer saw in the water a glimmer far below. It was brief, a shimmer like pearl caught in moonlight, gone as quickly as it had appeared. Yet it was enough to confirm the path, to remind them the drowned throne was no mere dream. And so, guided by whispers, by dolphins, by the unseen pulse, the wanderer's journey pressed ever onward. For the ocean does not reveal its secrets quickly, but it rewards those who walk in patience and faith. And in that vast expanse, the wanderer's story deepened, carried upon waves toward mysteries still unseen. The sea grew deeper, darker, as if each mile carried the wanderer closer to the ocean's hidden memory. The old sailor muttered of currents unknown, his weathered eyes tracing shadows that moved beneath the waves. The wanderer listened, not to the sailors' warnings, but to the quiet hum that pulsed like a distant drum. Every night, the dream returned stronger, showing the drowned throne glowing in silence, waiting in endless dark. Sometimes, the vision showed creatures, luminous and strange, guardians of the depths, watching but never speaking. The dolphins still followed for a time, guiding the boat across waters smooth as polished glass. Then, one dawn they vanished, diving deep as if to say the next steps must be taken alone. The sailor frowned, whispering that such silence meant boundaries had been crossed, places men should not go. But the wanderer felt peace, for the ocean did not frighten them. It welcomed, like a home long lost. On the 10th night, the sea shifted, no longer calm but alive, filled with voices like choral winds. The stars vanished behind heavy clouds, and the water glowed faintly as if lit from within the deep. The sailor gripped the tiller tight, praying quietly, while the wanderer leaned forward, listening to the ocean's song. It was not a storm, not wind or rain, but a swelling presence, a gathering of unseen tides. The waves did not break. They rose and fell with rhythm, like breath, slow and steady, vast and knowing. The wanderer closed their eyes, hearing the throne's heartbeat, louder now, thundering through the marrow of their bones. They whispered thanks, not in words of men, but in silence, letting their spirit echo back to the sea. The sailor gasped suddenly, pointing, for in the distance, the water shimmered like silver in the moonless night. It formed a path, a glowing trail across the surface, stretching outwards to the horizon where no land lay. The wanderer knew this was the way, not charted on maps, not written in stars, but carved in water. They urged the sailor to follow, and though fear darkened his eyes, curiosity drove him to obey. All night the boat glided over that path, the sea beneath glowing faintly as though alive with memory. Fish darted beneath in radiant colors, schools forming patterns like runes, messages unreadable yet strangely familiar. The wanderer leaned over the edge, reaching fingers into the water, feeling warmth instead of the ocean's chill. The sea accepted them, carrying the boat not by wind nor oar, but by its own unseen hand. By dawn, the path faded, and the boat drifted into a circle of still water, calm and bright. Here the ocean felt heavy, not threatening but sacred, as if the very air held breath in reverence. The wanderer sensed the throne was near, not in sight, but in presence, a weight pressing from below. The sailor trembled, saying no mortal should remain, urging the wanderer to turn back before the sea claimed them. But the wanderer smiled gently, knowing this journey was not about returning, but about witnessing the unseen truth. That night, they dreamed not of thrones, but of a hand, vast and gentle, guiding them downward. It was Poseidon himself, not wrathful, not proud, but patient, watching with eyes older than mountain and star. He spoke no words, but the wanderer understood. The drowned throne was not lost, only waiting to be remembered. When morning came, the sea was still, endless and glass-like, and the journey pressed onward into mystery. The old sailor wept quietly, unsure if he guided a mortal or something chosen by the sea itself. And the wanderer, with faith unbroken, listened, for the throne's heartbeat was now closer than ever before. The sea had become so still that even the old sailor dared not breathe too loudly in its silence. The boat drifted without sail or oar, carried by an unseen current, gentle yet unyielding, steady as fate. The wanderers stood at the bow, eyes half closed, hearing the pulse of the throne echo through their chest. It was no longer faint, but strong, like a drumbeat guiding every breath, every thought, every heartbeat within. The sailor muttered of curses, saying gods trapped men with visions before pulling them into watery graves. But the wanderers shook their heads softly, knowing the sea did not lure with cruelty, but with remembrance. At dusk, the horizon shimmered, not with sunset, but with a faint glow rising from beneath the waves. It pulsed in rhythm with the wanderer's heart, spreading across the water in ripples of silver light. The sailor covered his eyes, whispering prayers, for he feared such light was no gift, but an omen. The wanderer reached out, fingers brushing the glow upon the surface, and felt warmth instead of cold water. It was alive, a current not of tide, but of memory, carrying whispers too old for words to hold. That night, they dreamed again, but the throne was closer, its pearls shimmer clear as moonlight on stone. Around it swam creatures of light, guardians not of war, but of silence, keepers of Poseidon's hidden hall. They bowed as the wanderer approached, not in worship, but in recognition, as if greeting one long awaited. When morning came, the sea revealed its secret, a spiral of glowing reefs stretching downward into shadow. The sailor trembled, refusing to go further, for he said no man should trespass where gods laid their thrones. But the wanderer placed a hand upon his shoulder, thanking him, saying his journey had already been fulfilled. The old man wept quietly, torn between fear and awe, before turning his eyes away from the glowing sea. The wanderer prepared with calm resolve, knowing the path ahead would not be of wood and sail, but of faith. They tied no rope, carried no anchor, but stepped gently from the boat as though the sea was solid ground. Instead of sinking, the water held them for a moment, warm and luminous, before slowly drawing them below. The sailor gasped, reaching out, but did not stop them, for he knew the wanderer was not meant for land. Downward they drifted, not drowning, not struggling, but breathing as though the ocean itself lent its breath. The world of the surface vanished, replaced by vast silence, broken only by the shimmer of living reefs. Fish glowed like stars around them, moving in patterns like constellations written upon an endless canvas. The deeper they went, the louder the throne's heartbeat grew, echoing like a song carried through stone. Coral arches rose on either side, forming a pathway that spiraled toward darkness, glowing with hidden fire. The wanderer moved with no effort, guided not by strength, but by the will of the sea itself. They felt not fear, but belonging, as though every drop of water whispered, "You are home, you are known." The throne's glow grew brighter, and with it came visions, memories of ages when gods walked among men. They saw Poseidon seated, calm and watchful, his hand resting upon the throne that pulsed like the earth. They saw storms shaped not by rage but by balance, guiding seas to cleanse and renew the living world. They saw mortals offering gifts not from fear but reverence, knowing the ocean gave life as it took. And they saw the night the throne slipped away, not stolen, not broken, but surrendered to the deep. The vision faded, leaving silence. Yet the wanderer understood. This was not an end, but a beginning. The throne had not drowned in sorrow, but waited, patient for one who would listen, not command. The wanderer drifted onward, drawn deeper still, the heartbeat now steady, vast, and eternal in its call. For the path was no longer search, but arrival, no longer dream, but truth, unfolding in the sea's embrace. The ocean darkened as the wanderer drifted deeper, yet light shimmered ahead, weaving paths like threads of silver. The silence was profound, not empty but alive, carrying whispers that felt older than mountains and gentler than rain. The reefs gave way to an open expanse, vast as a cathedral, carved not by hand, but by time eternal. Pillars of coral stretched upward like guardians, their surfaces glowing faintly with runes long forgotten by mortals. The wanderer moved slowly, awe steadying their breath, each step upon the current guided by the throne's pulse. It felt no longer distant, but near, a rhythm woven into the marrow of their bones, steady and unbroken. Ahead, a vast gate of shell and stone loomed, spiraled with pearls and etched with symbols of the sea. Its doors were not closed, but ajar, swaying with the tide as though awaiting one who dared to enter. The wanderer placed a hand upon the frame, feeling warmth, as if the ocean itself welcomed their presence here. Crossing the threshold, they entered a hall where light shimmered like starlight across an endless mirrored floor. Each step rippled outward, not of water, but of memory, carrying visions that unfolded in the shifting glow. They saw the ocean when it was young, raw, and wild, untamed by gods, yet filled with restless wonder. They saw Poseidon rising, not with fury, but with quiet strength, shaping balance where chaos had once ruled. He placed the throne upon the seabed, not as a weapon, but as a promise to keep the waters whole. The wanderer felt the weight of this vision, heavy yet kind, a duty born not of conquest, but care. As the vision faded, the hall widened, opening into a dome lit by thousands of tiny glowing creatures. At its heart rose the throne itself, carved from coral, pearl, and stone, alive with the sea's eternal rhythm. Its glow was soft yet endless, neither blinding nor dim, steady as the breath of the world itself. The wanderer stopped, trembling, not from fear but reverence, sensing they stood before something greater than kings. They did not rush forward, but simply watched, listening to the throne's heartbeat echo in harmony with their own. The guardians of light appeared once more, circling slowly, their forms like flowing lanterns in the vast stillness. They made no sound, yet radiated calm, guiding the wanderer closer as though unveiling the final steps of destiny. The wanderer knelt before the throne, not compelled but choosing, acknowledging its power with humility, not desire. At that moment, the throne's glow brightened, not consuming but embracing, weaving light across the wanderer's form. Memories surged again, not only of gods and seas, but of every creature that ever drank from the ocean. The wanderer saw fishermen casting nets, children splashing at shorelines, sailors singing songs beneath endless stars. The sea was not possession, not power, but a bond between gods, mortals, and every life that touched its waves.
By the power of
Tears mingled with salt water,
advance.
though the wanderer did not weep from sorrow, but from a joy too vast for words. They reached out, placing their hands upon the throne, feeling warmth bloom like dawn through their fingertips. The sea stilled as though holding breath, the silence deep and sacred, carrying weight and wonder together. Then came a voice, not spoken but heard within, vast yet tender, old as tides yet close as thought. You have listened, it said, where others commanded. You have sought not power but truth, and so you are known. The wanderer bowed their head, not to claim but to honor, for they knew the throne was not a prize. It was a covenant, eternal and living, waiting not for rulers but for keepers, those who remembered balance. The throne pulsed gently, its light flowing through the wanderer, binding them to the sea's endless rhythm. And for the first time, the wanderer understood. They were no longer searching. They had arrived where they belonged. The throne glowed gently, its rhythm merging with the wanderer's breath, as if sea and soul became one current. For a long time, nothing moved, yet everything lived, silence holding truths too vast for mortal words. The wanderer's eyes closed, not in weariness, but in surrender, allowing the sea to speak in its own way. Visions bloomed once more, not as fragments, but as a flowing river, weaving past, present, and future together. They saw tides sweeping over coasts, not in fury, but in cycles, cleansing and renewing the fragile edges of land. They saw storms rise, fierce yet purposeful, guiding sailors home or teaching them to respect what they could not tame. They saw the throne as a beacon, not a seat of power, but a heartbeat for the balance of the deep. The wanderer felt these truths settle within, not as commands, but as trust, a bond older than memory. Suddenly, the light shifted, dimming slightly as though testing whether they would cling or let go in faith. The wanderer did not waver, remaining still, offering neither demand nor plea, but simple presence in the silence. The guardians of light encircled them once more, bowing low before dissolving into streams that wove into the throne. The hall trembled faintly, not with danger but awakening, as if acknowledging the wanderer's patience and humility. A new vision unfolded, vast and luminous, showing the throne drifting down through ages, untouched by mortal grasp. It had not been hidden in anger, nor abandoned in sorrow, but placed in waiting for one who would hear. The wanderer realized then that the throne was never truly lost, only drowned in the noise of forgotten reverence. Its return was not a gift to one soul, but a renewal for all who lived by the grace of water. They opened their eyes, and the glow of the throne now pulsed outward, echoing across the ocean itself. Above, far beyond reach, waves shifted as though answering a call, tides turning with newfound harmony and calm. The wanderer stood, feeling weightless, no longer separate from the sea but carried within its eternal rhythm. The voice returned, gentler now, like waves upon sand, saying, "You are not master, but witness, and this is enough." The wanderer bowed deeply, accepting the truth that to guard was not to rule, but to listen and preserve. The hall of coral shimmered brighter, creatures of light reappearing to spiral upward, guiding paths back toward the surface. The throne remained, steady and unmoved, its covenant restored, waiting still for those who might one day listen. The wanderer touched it once more, not in claim, but in farewell, leaving no mark but carrying its memory. As they turned, the path ahead opened, a corridor of reefs glowing with gentle radiance, leading them upward. They drifted with ease, the water lifting them, neither heavy nor suffocating, but as gentle as a cradle. The visions faded into soft silence, leaving only the steady rhythm of the throne echoing faintly in their chest. Closer to the surface, they sensed the sailor above, waiting with patience, though fear must have long gripped him. The wanderer smiled faintly, knowing the journey had not been one of discovery alone, but of remembrance restored. As the light of day shimmered above, they carried the ocean within, a story to tell without claim or crown. The throne remained below, eternal, not drowned but living, a reminder that the sea's truth was balance, not dominion. And though their path was far from over, the wanderer understood they were now forever part of the ocean's song. The sea had accepted them, not as ruler, but as keeper of a promise whispered in the tides of time. The sea parted gently as the wanderer rose, carried upward by light that lingered like threads of woven song. The throne's heartbeat still echoed within, soft but steady, a reminder of the covenant sealed in silence below. Breaking the surface, they gasped not from need, but from wonder, as if breathing both air and water at once. The sailor's boat bobbed nearby, its lantern dim in dawn's pale light, the old man waiting with weary eyes. He had feared the worst, yet when he saw the wanderer, a spark of awe softened the lines of his face. The wanderer climbed aboard, dripping seawater that glimmered faintly as though carrying the throne's glow within. For a long while, neither spoke, the silence stretching between them, heavy yet gentle as the tide itself. At last the sailor whispered, "You went where no man dares, and yet you return as though cradled by the sea." The wanderer met his gaze, their voice calm, saying, "I did not return alone. The ocean carries me now." The old man bowed his head, not in fear but in reverence, sensing truths too deep for words or questions. The boat drifted without oar, guided by currents that seemed to obey no wind, yet moved with perfect direction. The horizon burned gold with morning, waves calm as though the sea itself rested after sharing its secrets. The wanderer felt the throne's rhythm fade to a distant hum, not gone, but steady, waiting within their chest. Visions stirred still, not of gods, but of people. Fishermen hauling nets, children laughing, sailors singing across waves. The throne had shown that the sea belonged not to power, but to all who lived by its eternal grace. And so the wanderer knew. Their role was not ruler nor prophet, but keeper of the ocean's memory. As the boat neared shore, villagers gathered, murmuring at the sight of the wanderer shining faintly with sea's light. Some knelt, others whispered prayers, believing a god had risen from the deep to walk among mortal men. But the wanderer raised a hand, shaking their head gently, saying, "I am no god, only one who listened." The crowd grew silent, for their voice carried the hush of waves and the depth of unseen waters. Children stepped closer, unafraid, touching the hem of their cloak, still damp with salt and shimmering faintly. The wanderer smiled, kneeling to meet their eyes, saying softly, "The sea is not mine. It belongs to all." In that moment, the people understood, not in words, but in spirit, that the ocean was both gift and guardian. The sailor watched from the boat, silent and thoughtful, knowing his part in the tale was now complete. He had carried the wanderer into mystery, and now he saw them return, carrying something greater than treasure. The wanderer walked inland, though every step carried the rhythm of waves, as if the sea walked beside them. They spoke to the villagers of balance, of tides that give and take, of reverence owed to waters eternal. Not with command, but with gentleness, reminding them that to honor the sea was to honor life itself. At night, when stars shimmered on the horizon, the wanderer gazed seaward, hearing the throne's heartbeat still. It pulsed faintly, a promise that though hidden below, it was never far, always alive in the ocean's breath. And so the tale spread, of one who journeyed into the drowned deep and returned not with crown, but with truth. A truth whispered in tides and carried by wind, that the sea's power is not to be owned, but remembered. For Poseidon's throne was never lost, never drowned, but waiting for those who would listen rather than command. And the wanderer, now bound to its rhythm, lived not as ruler but as witness, keeper of a covenant eternal. The story of the wanderer spread like tide, whispered across villages, carried on winds, sung in voices soft and low. No crown marked their brow, no scepter filled their hand, yet people looked to them as if guided by stars. The sea itself seemed calmer, its storms less cruel, its tides more kind, as though balance had quietly returned. Fishermen swore their nets came back fuller, sailors claimed stars shone brighter, and children laughed longer at shorelines. Yet the wanderer never claimed glory, never sought worship, only reminded all that the sea was not possession. They spoke of cycles, of how water takes yet gives, how waves remind mortals that life is borrowed, never owned. At twilight, they sat often by the shore, gazing at the horizon as if listening to an unseen song. The throne still pulsed faintly within them, not as burden, but as bond, a reminder of truths entrusted, not earned. The sailor visited sometimes, his eyes still holding awe, but now softened with quiet peace instead of fear. He would sit beside the wanderer, sharing silence. Both knowing words could never capture what had been witnessed. Sometimes villagers gathered, asking of the throne, asking of gods, asking of what secrets lay beneath endless waters. The wanderer answered gently, "The throne is not mine to reveal. It belongs to the sea, and the sea to all." And though their voices were calm, each word carried the hush of waves, steady and eternal as the tide itself. As seasons passed, storms came and went, yet none struck with wrath, each serving balance as it had long ago. The villagers grew to understand reverence was not fear, but gratitude, honoring what sustained them with humility. The wanderer became not leader, but keeper, a quiet witness of harmony, a bridge between land and water. At night, dreams still brought visions, but no longer of searching, only of the throne resting, luminous, at peace. It waited still, not for conquest, not for rulers, but for those who would listen, as the wanderer had. One evening, standing alone at the shore, the wanderer closed their eyes and felt the ocean breathe within them. They knew their journey was not an end, but a beginning, the first ripple in a tide of remembrance. The covenant was not theirs to hold forever, but theirs to pass, like tide to shore, like dawn to night. Perhaps one day, another soul would hear the sea's call, walking into the deep to find balance once again. But until that time, the wanderer remained, carrying the rhythm of waves, living proof that the throne was not drowned. The people called them many names: keeper, witness, child of the sea. But the wanderer cared little for such titles. They were content with silence, with the laughter of children at tide pools, with gulls wheeling high above. They were content with the heartbeat of the throne echoing faintly in their chest, steady as a promise fulfilled. For they understood at last, Poseidon's throne was never about dominion, but about remembering the bond of all life. And as long as waves kissed the shore, as long as rain fell upon earth, that bond would never fade. So the wanderer lived not as legend, but as reminder, walking quietly among people, carrying the ocean in their soul. And in the end, when they were gone, the sea would still sing, patient, eternal, whispering of the drowned throne. Not drowned in sorrow, but resting, waiting, reminding all who listened that balance is the truest form of power. And so the story ends, not with a crown won, nor a kingdom claimed, but with harmony restored beneath endless waves. The throne remains deep and luminous, its heartbeat woven into every tide, every storm, every quiet ripple of the sea. Waiting, always waiting, for those who listen, for those who remember, for those who walk with humility and awe. For the ocean keeps no kings, only keepers, and its truth will endure as long as waves embrace the shore.